A new face and a new era in number 10. Andy Burnham takes over as Prime Minister. Just a month after returning to Parliament as an MP, he walks up this street as PM, promising to build a national sense of unity, common purpose and positivity.
Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again. The moment we bring back hope.
Now, his first task, of course, is to appoint a cabinet, which is happening right now in number 10 behind me. We'll have all the latest on who's in and who's out in Burnham's team. Also ahead. The new PM's promising to end rough sleeping. We'll look at Burnham's record on tackling homelessness in Manchester. The King of the North says he will serve the whole of the UK. So what can the country expect?
There's so many questions that everybody's got. It's just a matter of waiting and see, and I just hope that he sticks to his guns.
He might improve, he might not. He's came in at a tough time.
Brooking curling that in again towards Kevin Keegan! The England goal that we wanted, and Keegan is the scorer!
And tributes to the former England player and manager Kevin Keegan, whose death was announced today.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale in Downing Street.
Good evening from Downing Street, where Andy Burnham is tonight behind that famous black door, beginning work as Britain's 59th Prime Minister. To cheers here a little bit earlier this afternoon, he pledged to build a new politics and a new economy, he said, that works for everyone. And he is not wasting any time. He said he'd make immediate changes to improve people's lives and to tackle the cost of living starting tomorrow. He spoke with Donald Trump this afternoon, and tonight he's finalising his cabinet with John Healey just named as Chancellor. Rachel Reeves and David Lammy are among those who've been sacked today. Events started here this morning with Sir Keir Starmer saying a final goodbye and laying out his legacy of 2 years in power. He said he'd leave with a smile and that he was proud of all his government had achieved. Then Sir Keir travelled with his wife to resign before the King, before Andy Burnham was then appointed his successor. Well, tonight we're going to be looking at what a Burnham premiership could look like, and we're going to be hearing reaction from people right across the country. But first, here's our political correspondent Romilly Weeks on another momentous day in Downing Street.
Andy Burnham has said he wants a new kind of politics, but before that, there were some ancient traditions to uphold.
Let's go and see the King.
The fourth Prime Minister of King Charles's reign, a king who may well have been thinking, how long will you last? Before his convoy left the palace, a man in a hurry to start exercising his powers. Clapped into Downing Street by a mass of old friends and allies, a hug for the MP who stood aside for him, for Liverpool Mayor Steve Rotherham, who'd brought his grandson, even his beloved Everton, represented by the legendary Peter Reid. Then stepping into the glare of the cameras at his moment of maximum political power.
I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. In doing so, I am acutely conscious that I am the sixth person in the last 10 years to walk up this street. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
Speaking without notes and no podium and promising more than superficial change, a 10-year plan to come, but first.
I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them.
Mental health support in schools and housing will be priorities, with his first clear policy, this.
I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country. Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again, the moment we bring back hope. Thank you very much, everybody.
A moment of optimism for his supporters, for his mother, a moment of pride.
There's new hope for the country, and that people like him will grow up to a less divided and a more fairer country.
Do you think he really can deliver in a way that so many other prime ministers have failed to in recent times?
He has an opportunity to change everything, to be bold. He's got 3 years. I think the circumstances of his arrival will encourage boldness.
25 years after he was first elected, Andy Burnham has got where he wanted to be. He says he knows what he wants to do with the power he now holds, and we're about to hear who he wants alongside him as he tries to deliver it.
Into number 10 to deal with the tricky realities of government. First, who to axe and who to promote. The two who'd been tipped as possible chancellors, Ed Miliband and Shabana Mahmood, arriving together in a show of unity. But it was former Defence Secretary John Healey, the surprise appointment to the role. As for departures, Rachel Reeves is definitely out. David Lammy no longer Deputy PM or Justice Secretary, and Housing Secretary Steve Reed also gone. It was also, of course, Keir Starmer's last day, insisting he was handing over a country stronger and fairer.
As I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support, and I thank the British people for the opportunity to serve. I go with good grace, I go with a smile, and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
No bitterness on show at the abrupt ending of his career, but in the brutal way of politics, no longer his show. The hopes, the fears, the responsibilities of office, all on Andy Burnham's shoulders now. Romilly Weeks, ITV News.
Well, our political editor Robert Peston is here. It's all happening. New members of the Cabinet arriving even as we speak. But first things first, new Prime Minister, 7th in 10 years, is it? What can we expect from the Burnham government, do you think?
Well, he's told us quite a lot. Tomorrow we are going to be getting a series of cost of living measures. He says, sounds a bit like a mini budget if I'm honest with you, that tomorrow he and the new Chancellor, John Healey, will say how they're going to help people with their bills. Could be in the area of energy and rents and transport, bus fares have been very much mooted while he was campaigning. And he's also said it's going to be fully costed. So there's going to be some short-term measures. He also talked about a 10-year plan to fix what he regards as the big flaws, like, for example, the fact that we have chronically inefficient and many would say poor care for the infirm elderly. Social care, he says, is an absolute priority to fix, but it is very expensive and pretty hard to do. He's also talked about reforming welfare. So, you know, he said today he would come up with a 10-year plan to fix these, you know, big problems that we face. He also talked about bringing stability. You pointed out 7 prime ministers in 10 years. It's actually just 5 prime ministers in just 4 years. Internationally, we look a bit of a laughing stock. You know, we always, you know, boast about being a stable democracy. It hasn't looked all that stable. He has today sacked a very significant number of Keir Starmer's closest supporters and allies in the cabinet, from Rachel Reeves through to David Lammy. Somebody said to me, poor old Keir Starmer didn't really have a faction when he was Prime Minister. There may now be a faction of anti-Burnham people on the back benches. So his hope of being leading a stable government for years, well, we'll see if the infighting Labour Party steps up again, or whether his own party will give him the benefit of the doubt for a period.
All right, Robert, thank you. Well, let's get more then on that key appointment of John Healey as Chancellor, and our economics editor Joel Hills is at the Treasury. Joel, what can we expect from the new Chancellor and what challenges does he face?
Yeah, I mean, look, today was about a bold vision and vibes, wasn't it? The Prime Minister spelt out this idea that, we're going to reindustrialise the British economy, a new economic model, more council homes, more young people back into work, financial support for households, prosperity improving in every corner of the UK. But we've absolutely no idea how he's going to deliver that. He will be relying on his new Chancellor, and the backdrop for John Healey is not very promising. Economic growth is weak. Living standards have been flatlining, and we know that the government's finances are stretched in a way that looks completely unsustainable. Now, John Healey's background is not in economics. We know his most recent political career was over in defence. Presumably, he will be looking to secure higher levels of defence spending. But he has spent time in the Treasury under Tony Blair. He will know how the building and the operation works. More broadly, he's seen as being someone who I think the market view and market confidence in government finances is important. He's expressed sympathy previously that those that are wealthier or on higher incomes in society should pay higher rates of tax. So that gives us a sense of kind of where he's from. Tomorrow he will set out those cost of living measures and say, importantly, as Robert was stating there, how they will be paid for. So it's very clear this creates the setting that there's not much room for manoeuvre here. What is given to one household will probably have to be taken away from elsewhere. It's worth remembering that, national debt, our stock of government debt in the last 15 years has tripled. There isn't very much room for manoeuvre. Markets are watching the UK very carefully, and the effective interest rate the government pays to borrow money in the last 4 years has risen to the highest level of any other G7 nation. Liz Truss casts a very long shadow.
OK, Joel Hill's outside the Treasury there. Thank you. Now, as Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham earned a reputation for improving the city's economy and also improving the lives of its residents with better public transport and tackling rough sleeping. But can he translate that success to the whole of the UK, including remote communities in coastal and rural areas? Sangeeta Lal reports.
A new beat, but is it the same tune? Westminster is going through familiar motions, but as another Prime Minister carefully choreographs a new cabinet for Downing Street. In Weston-super-Mare, people want to see results, but they're unsure of the person promising it.
I don't really know much about him because he's mainly been at North.
He feels a bit unfamiliar?
Yes.
Manchester doesn't seem that much more remote than London.
Do you think he's the man that can make this country feel more united?
I really, really hope so. The most important thing is for life to feel fair, for people who are struggling not to struggle.
Andy Burnham says he wants to build a new economy, to take power out of Downing Street to every postcode to reduce the cost of living so people have more money to spend. Ticket prices here have risen as visitor numbers have dropped.
Whilst minimum wage is hiked and people are starting with a lot more in their pocket, they're not ending with it. We don't sell anything that people need. We sell a wonderful value day out for all the family.
What changes do you need to see to help your business?
We need funding to promote our area, to tell people who we are, what we are and what we've got here. With the cost of fuel and the problems that people have financially on a daily basis, those people coming to this resort are diminishing.
The Prime Minister is due to announce new cost of living measures tomorrow, claiming people are fed up with politics.
Piers often symbolise the decay of our seaside towns. Weston's famous Birnbeck Pier has been closed for 30 years. Now publicly owned, the council is rebuilding. Local investment, people here say they hope Andy Burnham will deliver more of.
Across the Bristol Channel and the border, they know plenty about devolving decisions. 2 months on from Labour losing for the first time in Wales, there was little support at the Royal Welsh Show for the former Greater Manchester Mayor.
We're meant to be a democratic society, and we get a Prime Minister that's voted in a by-election.
There's so many questions that everybody's got. It's just a matter of wait and see, and I just hope that he sticks to his guns.
He might improve, he might not. He's came in at a tough time.
Britain is closely watching Andy Burnham's every move as he delicately navigates his first few days in office, with many asking whether he can steer the country towards lasting change. Sangeeta Lal, ITV News.
Now, Andy Burnham has promised to be a Prime Minister for all people and for 4 nations. Let's hear the reaction from Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Paul Riley is in Belfast. And ITV News Wales political editor Adrian Masters is at the Royal Welsh Show in both Wales. But first, let's go to our Scotland reporter, Louise Scott, who's outside Bute House, the official residence of Scotland's First Minister John Swinney. So, Louise, is this a popular appointment?
First Minister had relatively positive things to say about the Prime Minister. They've not yet spoken, but there are certain issues that John Swinney is keen to speak to him about when that call comes. Top of the agenda, the cost of living and what he calls the right to choose a fresh start with independence. And the First Minister told me he's hoping to have constructive conversations on those issues.
That there is big change he wishes to deliver, particularly in the governance of the United Kingdom, given that he acknowledges that Westminster has failed, and I agree with that analysis. So I want to make sure that as a result of his actions, Scotland has more powers to decide our own future.
Well, more control over energy and economic issues are 2 of the areas the First Minister said he'd like to see the powers strengthened at Holyrood. However, when it comes to another independence referendum, Andy Burnham has previously said it's not something that he would consider. Now, the SNP may be calling today's change of Prime Minister Groundhog Day, but they can't comment too much as they have their 3rd leader in just 3 years.
Well, the big news in Northern Ireland in the last hour is the departure of Hilary Benn as the Northern Ireland Secretary of State. We don't know who will replace him, but whoever they are, they're going to have a very full in-tray. And a big challenge for Andy Burnham as Prime Minister is the fact that the Northern Ireland Executive, the devolved power-sharing government here, hasn't agreed a budget. And in fact, it's looking at an overspend of £1.5 billion. Now, the Stormont parties met the Treasury last month. The understanding is that that was a fact-finding mission for Andy Burnham and his premiership. Another big issue for Andy Burnham is the legacy legislation. That's a framework on dealing with Northern Ireland's troubled past. It appears that legislation has somewhat stalled. And of course, Andy Burnham is seen as a great devolutionist, and a lot of the parties here will be asking him to look at the reform of the Stormont institutions.
Here in Wales, Andy Burnham faces an uphill struggle that you can see really here at the Royal Welsh Show. There are loads of politicians here, but very few of them are Labour. And that's because the party suffered a catastrophic defeat just over a couple of months ago in the Senedd election. And the Welsh Government is now run by the nationalists at Plaid Cymru. And the newish First Minister, Rhys ap Iorwerth, told me he's hoping for a meeting with Andy Burnham pretty soon, and he wanted to see some change in the approach taken to the Welsh Government.
What I'm looking for is respect for devolution. We have devolution to Wales. When he talks about devolving out of London to parts of England, mayors, cities, regions, wherever, that's one thing. We have that devolved settlement. What we want is for it to work better. Currently, it's suboptimal.
Both men use the D word a lot, devolution, but it may mean completely different things to them. To Andy Burnham, it seems at least that it means more power to communities, to councils, to directly elected mayors. To Rhys ap Iorwerth and the Welsh Government, it means strengthening the devolution settlement that we actually have here in Wales currently, which involves the Welsh Parliament, the Senedd and the Welsh Government. So while they're both talking as if they are open-minded and ready for a positive relationship, there could be tension ahead.
All right, thanks to Adrian at the Royal Welsh Show, Paul in Belfast and Louise at Bute House. Well, there's more ahead in the ITV Evening News, including the new PM has pledged to bring an end to homelessness, but can he recreate what worked in Manchester? And we hear what people think of Andy Burnham and what he needs to do to win over voters.
I think the fact that he's sort of like a bit of a career politician, I feel that sort of alienates him slightly from me.
He's done some positive things over in Manchester, and if he can bring them nationally, it would be great to see those changes.
All of that and more after the break. See you then. Hello, welcome back to Downing Street. It's pretty busy here, some comings and goings and some confirmed appointments in Andy Burnham's team. Our political correspondent Harry Horton is here. So what have you got for us, Harry?
Well, I think probably the biggest one is Ed Miliband, who was the Energy Secretary and we know was rumoured to be interested in the job of Chancellor. He's been confirmed as the new Foreign Secretary. We've also been told that Shabana Mahmood, who is the current Home Secretary, will be staying in her position. She's been quite clear over the last few weeks that she enjoys the job she's doing. She wants to remain in that post. Andy Burnham's kept her in that job. Louise Haigh, who was formerly the Transport Secretary, sacked by Keir Starmer. She is back in government. She's the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which we're told will be a sort of beefed up role delivering Andy Burnham's agenda throughout Whitehall. That's a pretty big job for her. And then just in the last few minutes going into number 10, Pat McFadden, who is the current Work and Pension Secretary, and Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary. We're not sure what jobs they've got yet, but I'm sure we'll find out in the next few minutes.
And John Healey has also been confirmed.
John Healey, of course, also confirmed as Chancellor as well, which will be seen as, I think, quite a safe choice for that job, and we might be hearing a bit more from him in the next few hours.
OK, Harry, for the moment, thank you. Well, Andy Burnham's first pledge as Prime Minister was to bring an end to homelessness. It's something he had considerable success with as Mayor of Greater Manchester. But can he make what worked there work across the country? Here's our North of England correspondent, Rachel Townsend.
Good morning.
Just hours before accepting a mandate from King Charles to form a government, Andy Burnham met some of those who call the streets their home. At the Passage homeless charity in London, he promised he would get the basics right.
Put a care for people at the heart of everything that we do and just get this country working as it should again.
In his first moments as Prime Minister, he echoed the same priorities he did as Greater Manchester Mayor.
I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country.
He donated 15% of his mayoral salary to his Bed Every Night scheme that provided 600 beds to people who'd otherwise be on the streets. Over 4 years, rough sleeping fell by almost 45%. What was different about his approach to homelessness?
I think it was that he took a really interest in and understand the complexity of homelessness. Homelessness is not the problem. It's the symptom of many problems. And Andy,
Rob Rowe was a former rough sleeper and later worked alongside Andy Burnham in the Greater Manchester Homeless Network.
Everybody used to sort of say, oh yeah, they used to wheel someone out. Look at Rob, he's been to prison, Class A drug addict, get him up on the stage, let him do a little talk. All the professionals go, oh, well done. That's what it used to be, but it really moved on from that. There's no ceiling to what you can achieve, and your past doesn't dictate who you are, and he was sort of one that drove that as well through the Greater Manchester Homeless Network.
Success, albeit not complete success here, has raised expectations. Delivering across the whole country against the backdrop of a chronic shortage of affordable housing is a far tougher test. Rachel Townsend, ITV News, Greater Manchester.
Well, with me to talk more about this is our investigations editor, Daniel Hewitt, who you will, I'm sure, remember, exposed to housing crisis across the country. So, Dan, how can Andy Burnham achieve what he's promising?
It's a big pledge, Mary. I watched him make the same pledge 9 years ago in Greater Manchester when he became mayor. He hasn't been able to do that there. I think when I interviewed him back in December, I think I got a sense from him as he knows why he wasn't able to eradicate homelessness. And basically, he blamed the government. He blamed national government. He said because in Greater Manchester, they had a policy of housing first, making sure that there was a bed every night for anyone that was homeless. Other areas of the country didn't. So people would flock to Greater Manchester. On top of that, he had the Home Office evicting asylum seekers when they had leave to remain and going into Manchester, and therefore he wasn't able to eradicate homelessness. He's been massively inspired by Finland, where they have this housing first policy. That said, I would say John Healey, the new Chancellor, he was the former housing minister under Gordon Brown in his the last Labour government. I've had a lot of texts tonight from people in council housing saying they're very happy about John Healey as Chancellor, so I think we can put a bit more meat on the bone as to why he may have been given that job.
Well, you may be able to hear lots of snapping of
Angela
the
Rayner
photographers behind me.
Will you be Housing
Angela
Secretary
Rayner
again?
Just arriving at number 10.
What job do you want, Angela Rayner?
She, of course, stepped aside from the Starmer government. Nice try, Dan.
I tried for you,
No
Mary.
word from Angela Rayner there.
Shouting
well, let's
over
see.
you,
We'll
I
keep
apologise.
you posted. Thank you for the moment. Great stuff. You are watching the ITV Evening News. It's nearly 7 o'clock, and here's what's still ahead. The latest as Andy Burnham announces the new members of his cabinet on his first day as the new PM. The Spanish team arrives home after beating Argentina to be crowned World Cup champions. Everton legend Peter Reid welcomes Andy Burnham to Downing Street.
I thought he struck the right tone, and now we've got to come up with the... Andy's got to come up with the goods. And that's the hard thing to do.
And while these drought-tolerant plants aren't worrying about the lack of rain, many are. Join me for tonight's forecast from the Horniman Museum and Gardens later in the programme.
Now, as new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham will have been given top-secret briefings on the security issues facing the country, as well as being instructed to write what they call letters of last resort to the captains of the UK's 4 nuclear-armed submarines. He takes over the reins at a time of heightened international turmoil, and the former head of MI6, Sir Richard Moore, has told ITV News about the major challenges ahead. He spoke to our global security editor, Rohit Kantru.
What would you say to the now Prime Minister Andy Burnham as he walks in?
It just must be a moment when you realise some of the gravity of the responsibilities you've taken over. You get the nuclear codes given to you at some point over the next few days, week or so. He'll have his meetings with the Chief of Defence Staff and with the heads of the agencies. And at that point you become aware, I think, of the enormity of what you've just taken on. The first thing to, I think, recognise is that a lot of diplomacy, a lot of being an effective Prime Minister overseas is turning up. And he'll have to do that despite the voices telling him he shouldn't. You know, we're all familiar with the phrase, sadly, aren't we? Never hear, care. And there'll be some variation for Andy Burnham, never around Andy or Air Miles Andy, or some of these stuff will be spoken of. It is nonsense. He will have to try and ignore it.
7 Prime Ministers in however many years. Does that weaken the UK, and does that weaken Andy Burnham's hand with some of his allies?
Well, if you get political instability anywhere, it's not going to help you on the international stage, because you're trying to forge relationships, load-bearing relationships with other key international leaders.
Perhaps today or tomorrow, a phone call with President Trump.
With President Trump or with any incumbent of the White House, the British Prime Minister, one of their first things they can do for their nation is to try and get onto a good working relationship with the President. And I think we have an opportunity, and we have an opportunity in his relationship with the US President, I think, to argue the case for why supporting Ukraine and ensuring that Putin doesn't succeed in his adventure in Ukraine is vital for US as well as for European security. I'm sure that Andy Burnham will try and create some rapport. He's clearly a good communicator, and I hope he'll use those communication skills to explain the indivisibility, if you like, of the abroad and the domestic. They're not separate things. Things like the Straits of Hormuz, which cuts trade and cuts the supply of, in this case, oil and gas, that has a direct impact on the United Kingdom. I don't envy him. The world that he's facing coming in as Prime Minister is a very contested world.
Well, Andy Burnham knows he has to see off the threat closer to home from Reform UK on the right, as well as the Lib Dems and the Greens on the centre and left. So what do voters want to see from him And what does the latest polling suggest his impact will be? Our UK editor Paul Brand is in the studio with all the details. Paul.
Yeah, Mary, Andy Burnham is at the height of his power. So what do people actually want him to do with it? We've been delving into data from More in Common to find out. These are the top issues that voters say they care about. Number one, by some margin, as you can see, is the cost of living here, which Andy Burnham promised to address tomorrow. That is followed by concern for the NHS and also the issue of immigration. We didn't hear about either of those, actually, today. But how hopeful are people that Andy Burnham will address their concerns? This graph shows how many people think the government can improve their lives. You can see, actually, quite a lot of optimism when Labour first came to power 2 years ago. More than half of people felt hopeful, but then it dives down here to a low as they get deep into government. There are signs, though, that it started to tick back up again because people started to realise that it was quite likely that Andy Burnham would be Prime Minister. And at Leeds Building College today, they were willing to give him a hearing.
I hope he has good ideas and good intentions, for everybody. It could be good if he does follow through with them.
I think the fact that he's sort of a bit of a career politician, I feel that sort of alienates him slightly from me.
He's done some positive things over in Manchester, and if he can bring them nationally, it would be great to see those changes.
OK, so among the population more generally, how popular is Andy Burnham? Well, you ask voters to score leaders positively or negatively, and you get this result here. Overall, Andy Burnham is just about in the positive. Ditto Kemi Badenoch of the Conservative Party. Doesn't look that overwhelmingly impressive, does it? Until you see how it compares to Keir Starmer down here, who was way into the negative. So could Andy Burnham win an election? This is how the polls look under Keir Starmer, and you can see that Labour are behind both the Conservatives and Reform UK. But they leapfrog when you ask people to imagine Andy Burnham as leader of the Labour Party, though this here is pretty close.
There is some evidence in polls that suggests that Andy Burnham could be more popular than some other politicians, but he hasn't been tested yet as a Prime Minister. There's also evidence to suggest that people don't yet know who Andy Burnham is. There are lots of people who are undecided.
Well, what about then Andy Burnham's ability to unite the whole country? This shows how many people think Andy Burnham speaks for them. In the North West, no surprise, people feel relatively well represented by the former Manchester mayor, but that figure drops as you come down the regions and nations. Look at Yorkshire, for example, also part of the north of England, but people here far less faithful in Andy Burnham. And then when you get right down to the bottom, the southeast of England, look at the difference between this and the northwest of England. And at this plumbing merchant in Basildon in Essex today, we found he does have more convincing to do in the south of England.
He is pro-North, and it's going to take away people who live in the South to give to the North.
He's going to be Prime Minister of England, not Prime Minister of the North, so he should look after the whole country and see it as his responsibility to look after the South as well.
He's got to have the same get up and go for everyone in the whole country. So, let's see what his policies bring to both North and South.
So Andy Burnham is the latest in a quick succession of Prime Ministers. Politics moves fast these days, and he will need to keep ahead of it if he's to buck the trend.
It certainly does. Paul, thank you. Well, there is plenty more still to come tonight. The Spanish team returns home as World Cup champions. And Everton great Peter Reid helps welcome the new PM to Downing Street. That and more after the break. See you then. Hello again, welcome back to Downing Street, and some breaking news that we can bring you right now. A 28-year-old man has tonight been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe. The former MP and MEP was found dead at her home in Devon earlier this month. Saba Chowdhury is outside New Scotland Yard. Saba, what have the police said?
Good evening. Well, moments ago, as you say here at Scotland Yard, the police confirmed that a 28-year-old British man called Joshua Kerry has been charged with the murder of Anne Widdecombe, the 78-year-old former Conservative MP whose body was discovered by police at home in Haytor in Devon on the 9th of July. Now, Kerry was arrested in Rotherham in South Yorkshire 3 days afterwards and has been in police custody now for over a week. First, he was arrested on suspicion of murder, and then he was rearrested last Monday on suspicion of the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism. Now, police said today they are still looking into potential motives and that there are now over 800 lines of inquiry that they are looking into. They also added that Kerry's first hearing will be at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow.
All right, Saba Chowdhury at New Scotland Yard, thank you. OK, let's turn to another of today's main stories now, and tributes to the former England, Liverpool and Newcastle star Kevin Keegan, who's died at the age of 75. Keegan was one of England's most decorated players, winning 3 First Division titles, an FA Cup, 2 UEFA Cups and the European Cup. He is still the only British player to have won 2 Ballon d'Or. His move into management of Newcastle and later England was just as eventful, although perhaps not quite as successful. He died just a few weeks after revealing he had stage 4 cancer. Our correspondent Rachel Younger looks back at his epic career.
Kevin Keegan chasing this one, doing so well.
Kevin Keegan was pure box office. His silky skills and trademark perm made him unforgettable on the pitch. And it looks like I'm falling. His irrepressible charisma off it, winning him admirers across the game and beyond. The son of a Yorkshire miner, he scored on his Liverpool debut and won just about everything going in his 6 seasons there during the 70s. But Keegan wanted more.
There wasn't a team really that could touch us. We could lose games, but they couldn't beat us if we all played anything near our best. And I just felt, crikey, I'm 27 now, and there's got to be some more improvement in me.
Ever the pioneer, he headed to the continent before foreign transfers were what the best players did. So popular at the German club Hamburg, they called their diminutive forward Mighty Mouse. He returned to England to play for Southampton and spent 2 seasons with his beloved Newcastle as a player, before coming agonisingly close to winning the Magpies their first league title in decades as their manager in 1996. Although he ruefully accepted he was more famous for succumbing to Alex Ferguson's mind games in perhaps football's most famous post-match interview.
I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
But the real Keegan was much softer.
Far better person than he was either a player or a manager. The Newcastle fans always sing there's only one Kevin Keegan, and there is. I honestly don't think we'll ever see the like. He was an amazing person.
A born leader who also captained and briefly managed England, Keegan's cancer was revealed by his family 6 months ago. Today they said Kevin had been battling cancer and was surrounded by his wife and daughters in his final moments. A double Ballon d'Or winner, Kevin was a much-loved husband, father and grandfather. The Prince of Wales calling him a truly remarkable footballer and manager. Another Newcastle legend, Alan Shearer, writing, "My hero, my manager, my friend. Sleep easy, boss." And perhaps because he never forgot that football's about the fans most of all, they adored him too. First in Merseyside, forever in Newcastle and beyond. A pint-sized impresario who was one of football's giants.
Tributes to Kevin Keegan, whose death was announced today. Well, staying with football now, and Spain has welcomed back its World Cup winning heroes as they arrived in Madrid. A huge parade will take place tonight in the city. Now, this is the scene in the capital right now, where a special ceremony with the players is going to be held later. The team will be met by the King, and hundreds of thousands of fans are expected to take part. As well as last night's tense and dramatic victory over an ill-tempered Argentina side. Here's Neil Connery on the happy homecoming.
In the Kingdom of Spain, the newly crowned world champions reign supreme. Captain Rodri cherishing football's greatest prize, with manager Luis de la Fuente and the rest of the squad. This is Spain's second World Cup after victory in 2010. The players taking pictures whenever they could, still savouring success with the world at their feet. It's been the longest of nights in Madrid as fans took to the streets to celebrate and revel in victory. We were really anxious. We wanted to win and we did. It was really tense, but we enjoyed it. It's better to be a constellation than to have lots of stars, everything in its path. It wasn't the World Cup ending Lionel Messi had hoped for. It proved too much for Leandro Paredes, shown a red card after grabbing Garcia and shoving Gavi. The FIFA half-time show song about peace, love and unity seemed a distant memory. For Argentina's manager, Lionel Scaloni, the defeat proved too much to bear. It hurts my soul. I'm very sorry. Late this afternoon, Spain's King Felipe and other members of the royal family welcomed their winning team back home. Spain are current European and Olympic champions and holders of the Women's World Cup and now the men's too. After another stellar performance, they're going to need a new trophy cabinet to cope. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Yeah, amazing scenes there. Well, the World Cup was bigger than ever before, but has it been the best ever? From Miami, here's our sports editor, Steve Scott, on the winners and the losers.
I think the first thing to say is the best team here won the tournament, which is a very good thing for football. England will have learned quite a lot about watching how Spain played Argentina last night. Argentina's behaviour at the end of the game, by the way, being investigated by FIFA. England did leave their fans with smiles on their faces eventually in the bronze medal match. I think Thomas Tuchel's job now is to get them to play like that when the pressure is on rather than when the pressure is off. The tournament as a whole was expanded, we know that. It did mean there were some meaningless group games, but without it we wouldn't have got the wonderful journey of Cape Verde. But some worrying developments perhaps, the hydration breaks, a traditional demographic of football fans. Also, the halftime show in the final went on for far longer than it was supposed to. But I suppose the biggest scandal of all was when President Trump stepped in, called Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, and asked him to have a look. But we know that the FIFA president loves the company of people with wealth, with fame and with power.
Our sports editor Steve Scott in Miami. Well, it's time for the weather here now, and Alex is at the Horniman Museum and Gardens in South London. Now, Alex, it is getting cooler, thank goodness, but not any less dry.
Good evening, Mary. Yes, a little less hot as we head through the coming days, but some parts of the country still will make their heat wave criteria, and there is no sign of any proper rain as we head through the next few days, and our gardens and also the farmers are crying out for a deluge of rain so that we can get back on track. Some counties have still seen no rain so far this month. Here at the Horniman Museum and Gardens, they're coping relatively well, and that's because they have planted drought-resistant plants across some of their gardens. So, of course, those parts of the gardens are doing well, but other parts will be struggling a little because of the lack of rain. Now, it has been another very dry and sunny day for most parts of the British Isles. We can get confirmation of that on our satellite picture from midday today. Shows not a great deal of cloud cover, clear skies overhead, but temperatures were much more comfortable today. Highs of 27 in the southeast, but as we head through the next few days, high pressure remains very much in control, and that's going to keep things on the dry side.
The warm weather continues. So why not squeeze the most out of the day? Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.
Well, as we go through the week ahead, plenty more sunshine to come. Temperatures still above average for the time of year, and as I say, some counties up and down the country will be meeting their heat wave threshold. By the time we get to Friday, temperatures could be around 29 degrees Celsius again. As for this evening, well, a very fine one indeed. You can probably still see the blue sky behind me overlooking the capital, where it is a relatively mild evening. And that's going to be the case up and down the British Isles. Many parts held at around 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. Certainly some cooler nights to come in those countryside areas. Then heading into tomorrow, again, another, I would say, a fresher start to the day, but temperatures will recover relatively quickly across most parts. As we head further north, maybe eastern parts of Scotland heading in towards the mid-20s. Further south, it'll be around 27 or 28 degrees Celsius out towards the southeast, maybe a touch fresher as you head towards the west country. But all in all, another largely fine day with plenty more sunshine to come. Just a bit of fair weather cloud building up here and there, but that cloud's certainly not producing any drops of rain. As we head through towards the next couple of days, very little changes. Wednesday, it is much more of the same. And as we head towards the end of the week, into the weekend, again, lots of dry weather.
Heinz Tomato Ketchup sponsors ITV National Weather.
To events here now, to the surprise of many, among those cheering the new Prime Minister as he walked up Downing Street earlier today was the Everton legend, Peter Reid. Now, Andy Burnham is a big fan of the club, and indeed he does hold a season ticket there. But it wasn't at first clear why Reid, who played for Everton in the 1980s, was actually here. Sam Holder explains.
Amidst the fawning crowd, friends, family, and a former footballer. Perhaps the biggest surprise of the Downing Street ascension, aside from the end of rough sleeping, the appearance of Peter Reid. Ruthless, fiercely competitive, and a master of tactics.
And Peter Reid taking retribution.
You could say Burnham learnt from the best.
I thought he struck the right tone, and now we've got to come up with the... Andy's got to come up with the goods. And that's the hard thing to do.
Are you happy in Everton supporters number 10?
Delighted.
Reid. Yes, a decades-long friendship born of football. Peter Reid, an Everton hero, the Prime Minister an Everton fan. They even joined up on the campaign trail.
Peter, it's a big moment, isn't it? The country needs to come together, doesn't it, behind England. But we also need to, get together and start combating some of the negative politics that we've got around, don't you think?
Yeah, I think, hey, listen, free country, everyone's got a choice, but it's better to be together.
Recent PMs have been keen to show off their football supporting credentials. Starmer was an Arsenal fan. Sunak, Southampton.
Nice to see you guys. Bye, bye, bye.
David Cameron said he suffered a brain fade.
Of course, I'd rather you supported West Ham.
Apparently forgetting he supposedly supported Aston Villa. They say you shouldn't mix football and politics, but it's become something of a British tradition. Sam Holder, ITV News.
And that brings to an end our coverage of a really momentous day here in Downing Street. The country has another Prime Minister, yes, another one, Andy Burnham, who has promised the biggest change in politics for 40 years. But now he has to deliver. And our political correspondent, Harry Horton, is here with a final thought. What difference do you think he will actually make, Harry?
Well, he's promised change, like you said. Here's Lucy Powell, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, another person we're expecting to join the Cabinet. He's got rid of people like Rachel Reeves, other close allies of Keir Starmer. So, look, he has started making some changes. But the big challenges, in terms of the economy, in terms of the international outlook, the various wars that are going on around the world, they remain still. And although Andy Burnham has promised that we'll get some more details on cost of living help that people will be able to feel this year, we don't know exactly what that will be. We haven't got the details of how he will pay for that. So those big challenges remain, and the answers to those big challenges we haven't yet heard from Andy Burnham, but he says he will lay them out for us in the next few days.
But it's all down to him now, isn't it? The talking has to end and we have to see results.
Absolutely. And look, Andy Burnham has spent much of the past decade campaigning. Now he's got to govern and show that he can actually make a difference that people feel.
All right, Harry Horton, thank you. And That is all from us for now. Tom will have the latest at 10, but from me and the evening news team, bye-bye.